This secluded, upscale London neighborhood is a far cry from the violence in Tripoli, but there's a connection. An 8-bedroom mansion owned by the family of Moammar Gadhafi, the Libyan dictator who, rather than relinquishing power, opted to massacre his own people. The price tag for this posh vacation home? $16 million. And that's just the beginning. $20 million for a stake in an Italian soccer team, $22 million for the development of a luxury spa and water bottling plant in the Italian countryside. And then the fleeting signs of a lavish lifestyle, like the New Year's Bash in St. Bart's, with live performances by Beyoncé and Usher. In other words, Libya's ruling family is extraordinarily rich. The family's net worth may top $90 billion, with assets hidden across the globe.
The overall amounts of money that they've got or have taken, we can never be precise about, because it's like measuring a black market. You don't know the total amounts of money that have been stolen.
Anthea Lawson works with Global Witness, which fights corruption in regimes around the world. She is one of the foremost experts on how dictators make and hide their money.
These dictators are getting extremely wealthy on the backs of their own people, and the international community doesn't seem to do anything until what?
Until we see these regimes toppling and people out on the streets and people getting killed. You know, this is what's so awful about what's happening in Libya. You know, there are people being killed by their own government, and it's taken until that point for anything to happen.
In an interview with ABC News, Gaddafi's son Saif not only denies there's been any violence in Libya, but also denies that his family is wealthy.
First of all, we don't have money outside. We are a very modest family, and everybody knows that. And we were laughing when they said we have money in Europe or Switzerland or something. It's a joke.
The joke is on anyone who believes him. The evidence shows that Gaddafi's family lives the high life, while about 1/3 of Libyans live at or below the poverty line. This, even though Libya's one of the most oil-rich countries in the world. But Gaddafi is not the only billionaire dictator around. Pick a tyrant, and you'll probably find a fortune. In Tunisia, this man, deposed President Zain El Abidine Ben Ali, is believed to be worth about $5 billion. In Egypt, before Hosni Mubarak was deposed, he amassed a vast fortune worth tens of billions. Not far from the Gaddafi's estate in North London, Mubarak's son Gamal owns this townhome in Knightsbridge. Properties in this neighborhood typically sell for $10 million plus.
Can you give me an overview of how some of these dictators are accumulating their wealth? What are some examples of how they're becoming billionaires?
You might set up a front company, and if you're responsible for trading your country's oil, you might trade it at below the market price to your own company and then sell it onto the market once you've disguised that it's your own company doing it, and split the difference with your cronies and embezzle some money that way. One of the other classic ways to engage in corruption is by ensuring that you are cut into every deal that happens in your country. And I think this is one of the things that may have been happening in Egypt and Libya, which is that the ruling family will ensure that they have a stake in all of the deals that are done.
Revenue that should benefit the whole country instead often ends up in the personal bank accounts of tyrants.
Isn't it obvious, though, that with regard to Mubarak and Gaddafi, that there is no way that their wealth could have come from their official salary as a head of that state?
What we see in these situations, though, in Libya, for example, or in Egypt, is that there are so many businesses that they're involved in that are benefiting from their role also as head of state, that it starts to become obvious that that is beyond what an ordinary businessman could get.
They would have to be some of the most successful businessmen ever to have accumulated the fortunes that they do.
Tim Daniel is a London-based lawyer who specializes in recovering assets stolen from countries through corruption.
Is anybody asking how Gaddafi could come up with $20 million to buy a 7.5% share in an Italian football team and buy a mansion here in London that is in a neighborhood where the townhomes sell for $10 to $20 million, and that's just the tip of the iceberg regarding the vast amounts of wealth he and his family have accumulated over the 40 some odd years that he's been in power. Is anybody asking, where's this money coming from?
If they're not, they should be, is the short answer. What I anticipate, particularly with the Libyan situation, is there is this Libyan Investment Authority, which we're reading in the press is a fairly shadowy organization itself.
This is the London headquarters of the Libyan Investment Authority. The LIA owns properties all over the world, and plenty here in the UK, like an office and apartment building a few blocks away, purchased for about $10 million. And Portman House in downtown London, a $250 million retail center with annual rents estimated at $18.5 million. The LIA also has an interest in Pearson Group, which owns the Financial Times and Penguin Books.
It will no doubt be argued that all the monies that are being invested through that authority are in fact Libyan monies and belong to the Libyan people. Okay, fine. Just so long as those monies go back to the Libyan people, or there is sufficient oversight back in Libya to ensure that those investments really are for the Libyan state and not for the benefit of members of the Gaddafi family.
It's possible some of these investments are legitimate. Others could be fronts for the Gaddafi family. If you're confused, you should be. So is the international community. But attorney Tim Daniels suspects very little money gets past the Gaddafis. It's laundered through dozens of companies controlled by the family.
There are, after all, 9 sons, and so you can spread quite a few billions through those sons. And as I said, another feature of this is that they always tend to be family organizations, why it is terribly important that the politically exposed persons include the family.
So we're really talking about money that is stolen from the people.
Yeah.
We're not talking about Gaddafi's money. We're talking about the money that belongs to the people of Libya.
Yes, at the end of the day, that is what it has to be.
And the money can only go out if we allow it to come into our banks. There's no point stealing billions of dollars if you're going to keep it under your bed.
But what about the banks that are accepting this money? And why aren't the banks saying, where's all this money coming from? Your people in Libya are very poor.
Banks have a duty to establish who their customer is, what the source of wealth is, and whether that explanation for this money is reasonable under the circumstances. So the question that is now really important to understand is, have the banks been doing that with Libya's money?
Have they?
Well, we don't know, because we don't know what the banks have been doing, because this all happens behind the wall of bank secrecy, and that's what allows all this to go on.
That and Western governments' complicity. After all, the U.S. and its allies have been doing lots of business with lots of bad actors.
I hear bankers saying this to me all the time, which is, why should we not do business with this government when our own government is doing business with them? The UK has lots of investments. We give aid to Egypt. We're all buying oil from Libya. So as long as the governments are wanting to do business with them, it sets a tone for the overall relationship, which I think, to give credit to the banks, that's the context in which they're doing their due diligence.
Now, the U.S. and a number of European countries have frozen Gaddafi's assets and those of his family. So far, a record $30 billion in the U.S. alone.